We're here with Emilio Diez Barroso, a dear friend, someone I've been fond of for a long time, ever since I met you. And thank you. And I'm so honored that this is our inaugural interview for the Authentic Listening series. And as I was sharing with you, ever since I met you, I've really sensed that attuning to your authentic truth and listening for what that is has been an integral part of your journey. And I'm so curious to know more about how that process and practice for you has unfolded since you were young up until now, and whether in your home environment or your upbringing, in retrospect, whether there were values that were aligned with your authenticity, and if they weren't, how you developed the attunement to really let go of what was not aligned and follow your true path. So why don't we start with that?
Sounds wonderful.
Great.
Thank you for providing this space and sharing. I would say that it's a very much an ongoing practice, an ongoing. The journey is still quite active.
Yes.
I was raised in a very loving environment, and within that environment, there were certain milestones that I always had in my head, certain conditionings that told me how something should and should not be done, and I associated success, I associated business with a particular profile. It looked a particular way in my upbringing, and that's how I thought it needed to look as I continued growing. And it really wasn't something that I was doing consciously, obviously. But I never really recognized that I wasn't being true to myself. For me, it was that was just what had to be done. These were the steps to take. And sometimes when I inquired, I would say, well, these are the steps to take so that then I can do what I really want to do. And obviously, it was quite obvious, and I think it's quite obvious when we look at some we take some altitude and look at lifespans, that then keeps on getting pushed. And that certainly was my experience, that then once I'm successful, then I can do what I want. That level of success is a moving target. And that definition keeps evolving. And so it's a very tricky thing that my mind used to play on me.
Yes.
And on the films particularly, even when starting to produce content, I said, well, I'm going to produce films that are just commercial and successful. And once they hit big, once I'm recognized and credible, then I can go do what I really want to do.
Right. I see.
So it's almost like compromising my own authenticity in exchange for my that insecurity that was really driving please tell me I'm good enough so that I can do what I really want.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's that's such a huge acknowledgement when you can really kind of see that cycle running as what it is. That kind of definition of success that was placed from an outward source. And your own kind of sense of giving yourself permission to do what you wanted only once you kind of attained that was always kind of at a distance. I'm wondering, as far as that process of awareness, as well as what sounds like was a process of accepting yourself and your own values and your own authenticity, really starting to attune to what that was. How did that unfold for you? What would you point as some of the real kind of significant influences that helped you listen to that?
When you say that, what comes forward is that my life was I was dedicating a lot of energy to managing perceptions.
I see.
A lot of effort was going to make sure that I was perceived a certain way. And in particular that I was meeting certain people, I was going to say certain people's expectations, but really it was my own perception of their expectations, because it really, looking in retrospect, they really didn't even have any expectations on me. It was what I was placing on them or projecting onto them. So the first big threshold moment was recognizing that I could stop pretending.
I see.
That I no longer needed to make anyone else like me. Because I realized that in that efforting, I was further and further from my objective anyway. But what that was inhibiting was a real inner stillness to inquire and say, what is true for me? What do I really want to do? And I'll tell you, there's this spinning wheel that has so much momentum that even after the awareness that I can take ownership over my choices, that momentum keeps on going. That conditioning for me, that conditioning was so strong that I could still see the pattern. I can still sometimes see the pattern of wanting to be accepted, validated, loved in business and in my personal life. And it's this capacity to call myself on it, to recognize that it's operating, where I just create the space to really inquire and move from a place of resting. You know, USM, the University of Santa Monica, was critical for me in that regard. And you know, my father was this big figure for me, what I associated with success, and having him accept me was was paramount importance for me. It was really driving a lot of my choices. And it wasn't until I fully let that go that I realized that on one end that he accepted me regardless.
Right.
But on the other, that I could really blossom and flourish and thrive because I was allowing space for my own choices to come through.
So that's amazing. I hear that. It sounds like the continual inquiry, because of that deep conditioning that was, and remnants of it that still recurs sometimes. It sounds like that inquiry and kind of experiencing that sense of stillness within yourself have been real nourishing for you as far as attuning to that inner authenticity.
Absolutely, and you know, as you were speaking, in this industry, often what I've perceived, or what I used to perceive, is that certain people weren't receptive to this stillness, to this authenticity. You know, I used to perceive either lawyers or managers, or any sort of individual that I perceived as being, or agents being very driven by the end result,
Right.
And by objectives, as not being willing or capable of residing in that space. And yet what was incredibly wonderful and surprising was that the more I rest in that way of being, it invites for that to actually happen. So my interactions in the industry with people that, you know, may otherwise be perceived as very cutting and very driven by money and by agendas, is that everyone is so willing to be met there. Everyone is so eager to just open their hearts and be true to themselves. You know, the lawyer has always wanted to write a screenplay,
Right.
but he's never really given himself permission.
Right.
And that's as close as he's going to get, because he's just, unless he's really available for that to come through. And it's been, you know, which is, I'm sharing my own story. I was a finance guy, and I loved watching movies. And I was like, well, I'm going to approach movies from a financial place, and I'm the finance guy. it just to give myself the permission to enjoy a movie, a film experience is it sounds so simple and yet was so distant for me in the past. And that's my experience of some of the people that I get to interact with, and allowing for that space gives them permission, like it gives me permission to fully drop those defenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that you shared, but permission is a huge element in, it sounds like, kind of the gift in which you're giving yourself, and what you're experiencing is that gift in giving yourself the permission to drop that guard or what have you is a permission for others who you're interacting with to also do the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of shared at different times the experience of that in our industry. How the people that you may have perceived in a totally different way, actually, when you do open up and share that authentic truth about, and be transparent, that they've shown aspects of themselves that you would have never guessed would come forth either.
Yeah, it's so humbling and empowering to recognize myself in someone else in that way, and to create a space where co-creation really happens.
Yes.
Not from the head, but from the heart.
Yeah, it's like it happens in this space, right, in between.
Yeah. And all those beliefs that were holding me back and saying, well, but if you're that way, then it's going to reflect in the business. And how's that going to... It's been wonderful to realize that the more in my heart I am, the more that choices come from there, the more that I reside in that space of open-heartedness, the better the feedback, financial and otherwise.
Wow, that's quite something, huh?
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, going back to that financial guy who was approaching movies in the very beginning from that point of view, I mean, it's such a different, it's almost like the opposite end you're approaching it from now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.